Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtadar Khan, your host. And today I'm going to talk to you about three things essentially. Number one, about the best universities in Asia. Which are the best universities and how have Indian universities fared in this? The reason I'm talking about them is because my interest in this ranking was triggered by two things, and I will show you shortly what those two things are, and you'll find them quite interesting. The second thing is that I do want to look at also how countries are investing in research and development. The future belongs to countries who dominate technology and science. So the countries which have the best universities, the countries which are investing the most in research, those countries which are providing freedom of thought and freedom of inquiry and research support to their scholars and universities, where they are encouraging a culture of innovation, are critical for economic development and growth. And therefore, it really, really matters as to which universities are the best universities in the world. So today, I will talk about the best universities in Asia and where India fares in it. But prior to that, I want to say that I have recorded a lecture on development, which I will share at some point tonight. And the World Bank essentially has a model of three I's for development. So it divides the world into low income, two types of middle income economies: lower middle income, higher middle income, and high income economies. So the World Bank argues or makes the case that if you're a low income economy, then you must invest in infrastructure and basic needs like education, etc., to try to move from low income to middle income. And then for middle income economies, the World Bank recommends something called investment plus infusion. So, what they want the middle income economies to do is to obviously invest in the infrastructure, but also make sure that the technologies that are already prevalent in richer and high income economies are also brought into the middle income economies. And then they argue that in order to go to the highest level from middle income to upper income, you have to innovate. Innovation in every form. So that's where technology, research, development, universities, investment in STEM, etc. That is science, technology, engineering, and math. So those are the areas where you have to invest to innovate in society, and therefore that's why universities become very, very critical. So that's why. So this is like a part of development strategy. In order to develop your country, you have to not only invest in infrastructure, but one important component of that infrastructure is the university. So recently, in the month of November, that is last month, the QS ranking for Asian universities, top universities, came out in November. In fact, it came out on the day I reached Hong Kong. And when I looked at it, I was amazed and impressed because the university which had invited me to give a keynote lecture at a conference on Indo-Pacific was the Chinese University of Hong Kong, and it was ranked in the top 10 universities in Asia. And I was quite impressed with it that, okay, I'm here at the eighth best university in Asia. And then 3 days, 4 days later, after that, as you're aware, I went to China, I went to Beijing and spoke at the Tsinghua University, which is now ranked number 9 in Asia. So to me, it was quite interesting that I was at these two universities at the time the Asian rankings came out. Uh, and at that time, I had decided to do this show, but it was not, I never found time to do the research that I want to do because I want to talk about spending also. Who is spending more on research? Because that is very critical. So somebody has made a very interesting comment there saying that we have WhatsApp universities. So this is why I focused on this. So I started seeing posters like this. Okay, watch this. So the first headline is from Times of India, TOI. India emerges as Asia's new research powerhouse. And saying, and you can see the difference from 2018 to 2094, 294 universities from India are listed in the top 1500 Asian universities. And then, of course, you can see this particular headline. It says record number of Indian universities enter Asia university rankings. The Modi government is driving a new era of transformation in higher education. So this is all going into the Modi government's narrative about becoming Vishwaguru. And then there are these featured universities in QS rankings for Asia. India beats China in QS university rankings for Asia. These are the top universities in Asia, the best one. This is the Economist, Economic Times of India. So these are very important publications in India, which were pushing the narrative that Indian universities were in the top. So obviously, I was very curious. Being a professor, I've spent my entire life in universities. I've studied till I was 30, and then I've been teaching since then. So there are a very short period of my life, maybe 3 years, that I was in the corporate sector and not in a university. So I decided that, well, let's go and take a look. And this is what I found out, that these are the top 10 Indian universities which feature in the Asian. And if you look at it, the highest ranked Indian Institute of Sciences, IIT Delhi, which is India's number one university, is actually ranked 59th in Asia. IIT Delhi is 59th. And then you have IIM, Indian Institute of Sciences, which is in Bangalore. And these are their rankings as they go. IIT Madras is 70th, IIT Mumbai, and so on. And so there are only 6 universities that India has, 4 IITs, 1 IIM, IIS, and 1 Chandigarh University, which are ranked, well, Chandigarh is not in the 100. So basically, Delhi University, which are ranked in the top 100 universities in Asia. So I mean, look at the narrative in India is about how India is topping, but that's really not the fact. And let me actually show you which are the top 10 universities in Asia. These are the universities. The University of Hong Kong, followed by Peking University. I went to its neighbor, the Tsinghua University. In Beijing, you have Peking and Tsinghua. They said these are the Chinese Harvard and MIT. And then you have Nanyang Technology, NTU, which is from Singapore. The number 4 is National University of Singapore, which I have visited, and I have given a lecture there once, that was many years ago in Singapore. Then you have Fudan University, that is the Chinese, then Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. 7th is City University of Hong Kong, and 8th is the Chinese University of Hong Kong. This is where I was invited. And Tsinghua is the one, another Chinese university, which is like Tech. This is the university that it is in Beijing, and Xi Jinping graduated from that university. And then you have Hong Kong Polytechnic University in the 10th. So this was quite a impressive thing. If you notice that you have only China and Singapore in the top 10. So Hong Kong, this little island of about 5 million people, it's unbelievable. Its GDP is like 500, 600 billion dollars, half a trillion, that's it. And it has what? Number 1 is from Hong Kong, number 6, number 7, number 8, and number 10. 4 universities from Hong Kong are in the top 10. This was incredibly impressive at all for that place. But let me actually take you to the website ranking, and you can see for yourself. There are a couple of things I want to show. And after that, I will talk about investments. So if you are looking at this, this is the website of the QS rankings. So these are the QS World University Rankings of Asia for 2026. And if you look at the number 1, as I said, Hong Kong University. So number 1, number 2, let's look at what is number 11 is Seoul. So now South Korea comes in at the 11th spot. South Korea takes the 12th spot, then back to China, 13. 14 is China. And then at the 15th rank comes Malaysia. Now, this came as a huge surprise to me, that Malaysia has become a Vishwaguru, or Asian guru at least. So India's IITs, etc., are not figuring in the top 15, but University of Malaya, which is actually quite a good university, I have been there in Kuala Lumpur, and even though I did not get a chance to speak there, give a lecture, I gave a lecture at IIU, Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, but I did get a chance to interact with the faculty from University of Malaya. And this is in the 15th, and then you have South Korea again, South Korea again, South Korea again, and then you have China, 19, 20, South Korea. So what's interesting is in the top 20, you have two from Singapore, you have several from South Korea, and then mostly Hong Kong and China, and one from Malaysia. Who is missing? India and Japan. In the top 20, there is no Japanese university. That came as a big surprise. 21, again China. 22, again Malaysia. 23, now Taiwan comes in at 23. And then you have Malaysia and Malaysia. So now in the top 25 universities, you have these countries, China and Hong Kong. Hong Kong is just China. So you have China, you have Hong Kong, you have Singapore, you have now Taiwan, you have South Korea and Malaysia. And Malaysia has surprisingly 3 universities in the top 25. And then at 26 comes the first Japanese university. And to me, that is amazing that, and it's very important because when I talk about investments in research, you will find that Japan is the third biggest investor in education, research, and development. And yet its universities do not rank in the top 25. So when you go to the next tier, then you will see that so continue, you'll see more Malaysian universities still showing up than Japanese. So it's Japanese, Taiwan. I'm very impressed with number 38. I consider myself as a student of Al-Farabi, the first and major Islamic political philosopher. And so the Kazakhstan university ranks 38. It is probably the number one university in Central Asia. And then you keep going, and and in the top 50, there is still no Indian university. Gajah Mada, oh, I have spoken at this university too. I gave a lecture there. In fact, my daughter, who was in ninth grade, she also gave a lecture at Gajah Mada University. That was in 2016. Here comes IIT Delhi, 59th ranked. And then you have after that IIM, etc. So I wanted to talk to you about this. These things are very important and very critical to recognize that if you're not investing in universities, etc., that will not happen. If you notice, there was a big talk about China plus one, that we will replace China, the US and the Europeans were talking about replacing China with India in the supply chain. And then suddenly we find that most of the investments went to Vietnam and went to Mexico. And the reason for that is skilled labor. So this is a bit troubling. So let me also tell you how this ranking takes place so you can understand. So with these rankings, what is significant about this ranking is that they measure 5 things. They measure academic reputation. So they look at a worldwide survey and ask people, how do you, so they ask scholars, academics, employers all over the world, how do you rank these universities? So apparently, Chinese, Hong Kong, and Singapore universities have a lot of name recognition. I'm surprised that the IITs don't have that kind of name recognition, even though there are so many graduates from IITs who are working abroad and doing phenomenally well. Remember all the CEOs of high-tech companies? Many of them have got their bachelor's degrees from IITs. So so in academic reputation, India performs moderately. And then when it comes to research impact, India lags behind. If you look at go back to their website and you can see for yourself that they also measure what is the average number of citations a research paper from the university gets, how many research papers the university scholars are publishing, which means that professors have to get a lot of research support, academic support, research time, not be burdened with too much teaching, so that they can publish. So So that is very interesting to see that in research impact, China and Singapore are on top, followed by India is way behind on research impact. And then faculty student ratio, how many professors do you have per student? That is a very important reason. If there are 100 students to one professor, then students don't get attention from the professor. This is a very important criteria. And obviously, you can imagine that even though India has so many universities and colleges, it is way behind Singapore and China. Singapore comes first on faculty student ratio, followed by China. And then in terms of internationalization, which means how many faculty members are from foreign countries, how many international students come and study in these universities, India is way behind there too. There's only one criteria out of the five in which India does reasonably well, in fact, better than most countries, which is on employer reputation. So those students who are graduating from Indian universities, the top universities, like the IITs and IIMs, when they are hired by employers, those employers have a very high opinion of Indian graduate students. So basically, there's a advertising problem that Indian universities are not getting the attention that they have to get. Uh, Someone is asking about Hong Kong. Is it because of the British legacy? I think it is because of the English language. Everybody in Hong Kong is quite fluent in the English language, and many of them go and study in Australia and UK at least for 1 or 2 years. So they get a lot of international exposure. So this is the state at the moment. India has many universities ranked in the top 1500, but India does not have a single university in the top 50 in Asia. So let's look at research funding. Now, this is important. Uh, I'm going to show you roughly. Okay, this chart. The blue line essentially tells you the growth of investment or by countries in research and development. So you can see that the research and development, the blue line, has roughly by 2023 reached close to $2.75 trillion per year. So the world at large is spending about $3 trillion. They're spending as much money as the size of the British economy, the British GDP, that much money we are spending. So the world is spending pretty large amount of money on research and development. And this is a cumulative number of both private and public investments. And then if you look at the red line, it tells you what percentage of the global economy or global GDP is spent on research. It is about 2% of the research. So of the global GDP, about 2% of that is being spent on research, etc. If you look at the size of investments, this is it. You can see that China has caught up with the United States in terms of investments. And you can see that the biggest investors in education, in research and development are US and China. Then it is followed by the European Union, but the third biggest investor, like I said, both China and the US spend over $750 billion on research and development. Japan spends about $180 billion. India spends half of what Japan does, about 80 to 90 billion, 70 to 80 billion dollars on research and development, and that is after adjusting for purchasing power parity. So you have these two are the big investors. So this is where the competition is for technology, for science, for domination between China and the US. And luckily for the US, all of these other investors in research are its allies, such as Japan, etc. And Republic of Korea, which is South Korea, is also a big investor in research. So you can clearly see that countries which are doing well economically, known for their technologies, known for their exports, all of them are investing in research and development. Look at this tiny Israel, see how much it invests. It's a country of just 9 or 10 million people, but it is per capita one of the biggest investors in research. And then we see nothing. And what is stunning to me is that there is no Muslim country except Turkey. Turkey is the only Muslim country which has a significant investments in research. It is close to like more than Canada and close to Brazil, more than Israel, as much as Russia. That's what Turkey is investing. We don't see any other countries. Even the European countries, France and Germany are investing, but if you look at these other countries, they're not investing as much in research, partly because they are smaller populations and partly because they rely on Germany and the European Union for their funding. The last chart that I want to show you is this one. Now, this is a bit complicated, and I want you to look at it very carefully because on one end you see China as very high, and at the other end you see the US as very low. So you have to understand what it really means. So it doesn't mean that the US is the lowest investor in research. The US is actually slightly bigger investor in research and development than China at the moment. But what that chart really does is, I'm just pulling a bigger version of it that I can see and tell you what it is. So if you look at it, it says top gainers and losers in global R&D from in the last 23 years, or in this particular century, from 2000 to 2023. So China has gone from 4% to 26%. So of the total money that we are spending on research, as like close to $3 trillion is what we are spending, $2.75 trillion, and China is spending more than 26% of the global share goes to China. It has increased a lot. And the second biggest spike in research is the Republic of Korea. The third biggest is Turkey, and the fourth biggest is India. Then Egypt, Thailand, Poland, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, Israel. So this is not about how much they are spending. It is about how much they have increased their spending on research, which means they are prioritizing research and development. So if India wants to compete with China, it can't be so far behind. It's behind Turkey and Korea. And these are very small countries. The Republic of Korea's population, I think, is 50 million. Turkey's is about less than 100 million. So India is like 14 times bigger than Turkey, 15, 16 times bigger than Turkey, and 30 times bigger than Korea. And yet they are outspending India in research. And India is the fourth or fifth biggest economy in the world. So it's priorities. It's about priorities. And then these are countries who are declining. Their share of the GDP is declining. So even though US is the number one and Japan is the number third largest, and Germany is the fourth largest investor, and France is the fifth largest investor in in research and development, their share has declined. So which means that if you were there looking at this in 1990s, then you would see that these five countries had a much bigger share of the global GDP. Now, what does that mean? What it really means is that now innovation is coming from other parts of the world because other countries are investing in research technology. That's why the innovation is coming from other parts of the world. When I went to China, every little thing was innovative. It kept surprising me constantly. You know, the robots cleaning the streets and pavements, robots cleaning hotel lobbies and bathrooms, cars parking like this, not going back and forth, automatic self parking, the large number of electric vehicles, the innovation in every little thing in China was stunning. So they're investing in research, they're investing in development, and so you can see the fact that the top the increase in investment in research is mostly coming from Asian countries, China, India, Turkey, South Korea, are the ones who have highlighted, tells you the importance of India, Indo-Pacific. And the fact that of the top three biggest investors in research and development, two are from Asia, that is China and Japan, and then South Korea comes in there too. So, so that is why Indo-Pacific is so important. And that is where the development is. So as the World Bank says, if you want to become a high income economy, you need to invest in in innovation. You have to have an innovative economy, and you cannot have an innovative economy if you're not investing in research and technology and development. So that is what I wanted to share with you today in this conversation. And uh, so I've gone live with a video which is supposed to be number 2 video. I'm teaching a short class in the month of January on politics of developing nations. So this will be the second video that my students are going to watch as supplementary to their readings and lectures. But the first one is on what is development and what are the politics of developing nations. I will load it sometime tonight if I do get time, because the class doesn't start till January. So do watch that show too, and then you will fully understand what I mean by the World Bank's model of 3 I's. If you're very poor, invest in infrastructure. If you're middle income, invest in infrastructure, but also focus on infusion of technology. And if you are middle income, then focus on innovation to become high income. So thank you for watching Conversations, and I hope you will find this interesting and thought-provoking. If you have not already subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channel, like this video, press the bell icon, and don't forget to share this video with your social political network. And for those who are watching from India, I will redo this show with extra focus on India in Hindi shortly. So take care and thank you for watching. Bye.